from the Jaws franchise to talk to. But luckily we do. So I will start down at the end with the OG, Jeffrey Kramer.
Hello.
Jaws and Jaws 2. Does anybody remember the water skiing scene from part 2? We have Christine Freeman. And coming back for his second appearance, and just so he doesn't bury the lead, his babysitter, Marilyn Monroe, like to call him like to call him Gary Pooh. So Gary Springer.
Hi everybody.
And then also from Jaws 2 we have the lovely Gigi Vorgan. And finally we have the last starfighter himself. I hope to be his Jake someday. Lance Guest from the Jaws of the Red. All right. So one of the things we're going to do is do Q&A. So when you have a question, pop your hand up. Our person with the mic will be out there. Over here we have Michael Smith. He is the author of The Making of Jaws 2. And he also runs the Jaws 50th anniversary social pages. So check him out on those. All right. So let's start down the. Does anybody have a question for Jeffrey? Yes? No? Maybe?
I have questions for you.
He's very glad you're here. Earlier today, he told me that he wants to make sure that everybody gets over there to meet him while he's still alive. So
Yeah, a lady was at my table, and I said, "Oh, you should do this while I'm still breathing, for sure." But I'll tell you something. Jaws was a perfect creative storm. Nothing went right. But in the end, when you added the music and you were cutting it and editing it and refining it, and Steven's camera, that it was shot at the water level, and you put it all together, and it's so rare for things to come together with that kind of fit. It was almost truly symbiotic. It just came together and became this enduring hit, because I must tell you, while we were shooting it, we thought we would never finish it, because we thought they would pull the plug. It was over budget. We stayed way too long in the high season. In the summer, the shark didn't work, which helped me because they'd add scenes. What's the name of that deputy? Let's shoot him. We've got to do something today. And it was lovely. But the hat is off to the village that makes filmmakers, because everybody's efforts came together and it created this, what many of you think of as a masterpiece, and I concur. Hear, hear.
Basically in Jaws 2,
Bravo.
Jaws 2 it was almost the same, because the shark also didn't work a lot. So what they would do with us, the kids, they would just say, okay, get on your boat, we're gonna shoot. So we would just sail back and forth, and they'd
Add a balloon, a water balloon.
They'd send
right.
out one camera crew, who wasn't dealing with the shark, just to film us doing that. So that's what, instead of writing scenes for you, they just made us sail.
So a lot of you may not know, but again, this is the poster girl for the Jaws 2 poster. But in addition, she is a world champion water skier. So I heard something about being in Freaky Friday, and that transitioned into working on Jaws 2.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So I came into this quite by accident. I spent a little time in Florida when I was growing up, and I'm from Missouri, but I was a water skier, and I was on the United States water ski team way back in 1971. And after that, I was living in California, and Walt Disney made a movie, which some of you, if you're old enough, will remember. It's called Freaky Friday. And so I did skiing to double for Jodie Foster. So the stunt coordinator on that film was a gentleman by the name of Ted Grossman, who all these folks know. he called me after the Freaky Friday. He said, hey, they're going to make another Jaws movie. Would you like to ski in that? And I said, sure. So, you know, unplanned, but I showed up in Martha's Vineyard and then ended up down in Pensacola and kind of got drug all over the place down there, and the shark didn't work most of the time. I spent a little time sitting in the water. It's pretty cold in early November down there, but it was a great experience, and who would have ever thought that that image would have been me? You know, it's not actually me on the poster, but it's a likeness maybe.
So Lance, I think you had a little bit different. Did you shoot Jaws 4 in the Bahamas?
Yes. Jaws 4 was shot mostly in the Bahamas. We did 1 week up at Martha's Vineyard. If anybody's been to Martha's Vineyard in February, it's not really the same experience. Is that right, guys? I mean, you're a local, so, you know, it's like 8 feet of snow. But yeah, we were mostly in the Bahamas, and we were there for quite some time. I remember that movie took about 5 months to shoot. Again, with the shark, with the hydraulics and the various sections of the shark that wouldn't work.
So Gigi,
Yes, sir.
one of the things in doing this I've found is that all the kids, the teenagers from Jaws 2 have really formed like a bond and a group, and you're still friends 40 some odd years later.
True.
What do you see as the reason for that, the enduring closeness that you did over a movie you did 40 years ago?
Well, I think it was like summer camp. If you guys know summer camp where you make friends and you bond, maybe over, you know, all your activities. And we got there, and for 4 weeks, all we did was get sailing lessons, which was very bonding. We all hung out, we sailed all day, and had to tie knots together, and then we ate together. It was very bonding, and like I talk to some of these people almost every day, which is so lovely. It's been 45 years.
You know, the joke was always on Jaws 2. It was a 9-month shoot. It was so long. The joke was always that if any of us ever went to prison, you got 6 months off of any jail term just for doing Jaws 2 in Pensacola. For sure.
Now, Jeffrey, I heard that Roy was not too happy to be on the set of Jaws 2 and pulled some shenanigans.
Well, Roy was a really nice guy on Jaws 1. He didn't want to do Jaws 2, and contractually they made it. And he was very good in it. But he wasn't always so much fun.
Warm.
Warm.
It was not warm.
Thank you, Gary.
But actually, I worked a lot with Roy afterwards. I stopped acting after a while, and I became a film publicist and moved back to New York, which is where Roy lived. So I would see him all the time, and I used to represent the Hamptons Film Festival, and he lived out there. And it was always, that's my buddy from the film. But he was fun.
So we're going to take any questions from the audience. Does anybody have a question? Just one over there.
And right over here up front.
Oh, okay.
Question for Jeff. Hey, how you doing? Can you share a good story or one that resonates with you from the set from Jaws 1 in the background?
Well, I don't know if you all know the story when we were going home one night from the bar. And I'm walking with Murray Hamilton, and we had a couple cocktails perhaps, and he's going, here kitty, and he gets skunked. I mean, he got sprayed. And then he refused to go. We went back to the hotel. He refused to go to his room, and he insisted he sleep on the couch in the lobby. It was almost uninhabitable by the next morning. It stank so. People were just coming through and going, oh my God, what are we gonna do? And Murray, you know, we had no tomato juice to bathe them in, and he just didn't care. He just fell asleep on the couch. It was so funny. True story.
Yes, this is really towards anyone, but I guess primarily towards Jeff, because you're on the first two. So what were some big parallels between Jaws 1 and 2, or perhaps maybe some big differences between the shooting and the production of both the first and the second movie?
Well, the parallels and the similarity was that the shark didn't work in either movie. I mean, you would sometimes see this ferocious thing come out of the water and then go, whoa. Just like it was fainting. It was, and you thought, how is it ever going to work? I mean, you know, when they found out that salt water corroded the pipes and the tubes and all of this stuff. And in those days, in Jaws 1, if you had a sailboat in the background, or Jaws 2, sometimes you'd see a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. There was nothing you could do except wait till it passed. Nowadays, you can just get rid of it. It was unbelievable. It was stunning.
Did any of you have or develop a genuine fear of sharks after the shooting of any of the Jaws films you were in?
I don't know anybody who has ever swum the same again, truthfully. We used to swim at night as kids on Martha's Vineyard. Not a shot. No mas.
Now I know, Lance, you some of your filming was actually done underwater in scuba.
Yeah.
You shot those scenes?
A lot of them, yeah, a lot of them. I had to get certified before we started the shoot, and something I always kind of wanted to do. I usually was working 6 days, and on my day off, I would go underwater. So they only had me one day of the week. So I did as much as close-up stuff as I could. I do some of the swimming and stuff, but I did have a stunt double named Gavin, who was thinner than I was at the time, which is kind of weird. I was like a string bean at the time. So Gavin was really good, and he did most of the, I think he did the Bond wreck. Okay. I did some of the Bond wreck, but he did the, we're chasing the bubbles to the top, and it's really dangerous, and I would not have trusted me to do it, so that was him.
So during the time that you guys were actually filming, did you ever have any real close encounters or scary encounters with real sharks?
Definitely. We'd be out on, I remember one day, it was already very cold, and we were out on a catamaran. I think you were with me. A few of the kids were on a catamaran, and they'd set up the shot. It would take 2 hours. We'd have all the kids' sailboats. We'd have the boat pulling the shark fin. We'd have the boat pulling the whole shark, and there'd be a camera boat. So in about 2 hours, you have the perfect shot, and then the wind changes. So the kids are out on this catamaran for a while, and we start to see hammerheads. Do you remember that, Springer? And they were circling the thing.
I think the Panhandle, there's huge, about a mile offshore. There's a huge crevice, and that's where all these sharks hang out. And so when we would be sailing, exactly, all of a sudden, because we were mostly on catamarans, there's a hammerhead between the two pontoons keeping pace with us, and we were whipping. And it was 45 minutes later, we're jumping in the water, and it's like, okay, it's work.
Maybe you were. Anyway, the way the production company dealt with that, when we'd call on the walkie-talkies, say, there's real sharks, you can come get us now. Come. They sent out cognac. And I think they got another hour out of us. Okay.
Oh, so one of the times I would get recreational days of diving. I think I got a couple of those days. And the one day we went to the edge. Remember in Finding Nemo, they talk about the edge, which is the edge of it's kind of, you go to the edge of the cliff and then there's 6,000 feet goes straight down. There was an area like that in the Bahamas. And so I went over to that, and I just sort of went over the side. I mean, I'm not going to fall or anything, but so I looked up, and swimming right over my head was a big hammerhead shark. And I mean, not close, but close enough, And so it was sort of weird, The whole time we're spending filming, we're trying to make this shark work, and then the only day I get off, I see a real one. So,
Did you dive before?
I learned for this,
That's me too. I
Malibu,
didn't have to dive in the movie, but that's where I started diving was through Frank Sparks, and the whole crew. It was great. Oh, I thought so. Anyway.
Did you do Malibu? Did you learn it at Malibu from those guys?
No, I learned in Florida because where they were filming, on days off,
Yeah.
I would go diving. Although I never got certified through them, so I had to get certified a few years later. But
Right. Okay.
So I want to thank you guys for everything you did and everything that you do, because when I have days off work, I spend it with you. Whether you realize it or not, it's when I put in my Jaws movies and I relax and I enjoy what you guys have done over and over and over again. I dive because of the movies, and when I've got time off work, I do a lot of diving. And because I know so much about diving, I have to ask this question. Tom Andrews, down below, gets scared by the shark in Jaws 2. He rushes to the surface. How in the hell did they film that without him really getting the bends?
There were cuts in it.
I mean, they show one, I've dissected this footage. They show one shot where he's coming up, and he is really coming up. I have no idea how deep he was. I didn't know if he did a free dive down, and then he came up on a free dive, or how they did that.
Not me.
They did a hell of a job filming that. I know that you cannot go faster than your bubbles, and he is outpacing his bubbles.
creative editing.
That's true. We had the same thing on Jaws: The Revenge when Gavin went up like that, and they were a series of cuts. He'd go 10 feet, then he'd go 10 feet, he'd go 10 feet, and it looks like you're beating your bubbles, but it's an illusion. At least in our movie it was. I mean,
Oh, in our movie it was real.
you can only speak for
Speaking of diving, Ben Anderson, who played Sparky, is the tax collector up in Osceola County, wherever Destin is. So he's still around.
all right.
In regards to all of the movies, were they heavily scripted, or did you have the ability to ad-lib a lot?
They were pretty heavily scripted, but we could ad-lib, and if they worked, Steven kept them in. I mean, in Jaws 1 and 2. Jaws 2, I don't know if you realize this, but there was another director that had started it. And then he got fired because when I showed up, I quit. He had cut my part in 2, gave all the best lines to his friend who played the other cop. And then he got fired, and they brought in a guy named Jano Swark, who is a master filmmaker. And he came in. The other guy had 6 months of prep. Jano came in, and after 3 weeks, he had to start shooting. And they made it up, and pages came out constantly at a moment's notice, and you had to memorize it and whatever. But it really was like planning a battle. The 3 units were on the water. Sometimes they didn't shoot a foot of film because on the water the boats, move and the wind changes. It is almost impossible. And I applaud Universal for not shooting this in a tank, because it would have been a very different movie. Very different. And you know, I applaud you guys, because I'll tell you something, what I've learned at these cons is that this is almost genetic, this love of this movie and the love of horror movies. Grandparents turn this love onto their children, they turn it on to their children, and people come to these cons, and even here, with 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds. And I said, oh, they haven't seen it. And they go, oh, yeah, they've seen it many times. And all I can think of is, I should call social services on you. It's too young. But when you think about all the effort of so many people, it is a Herculean job.
So, Christine, what was your experience in working with the shark? Everybody else seems to have shark stories.
I have several. I think they tried to film like 4 or 5 different death scenes, and it was all dependent on the shark working. And I remember one scene, they had boats all around with cameras focused. I was treading water, and the shark was supposed to come up and take me down. And they had divers underneath the water hanging onto my ankles, ready to pull me down. And every time the shark came up, it stopped. And so there I'm sitting there, hi, how are you? You know, so anyway, there was a lot of time spent treading water, waiting for the shark to work. And I was telling some of the guys this morning, one day I got really, really cold. I was shaking, and I got out of the water, and the guys on the boat said, get the brandy. You know, so I'm like 22 years old, and I think I was a little drunk by the time I got back to the hotel. So anyway, it was an experience for me.
Could I?
We wound up shooting, I started on the movie in March, because I was in that first version that Jeffrey was talking about, which of course I like better because Andy had a bigger part. But Roy was not happy with it, because, you know, in the first part, we saved the helicopter pilot, and Andy dives in the water and swims to the helicopter and pulls the pilot out. Roy wasn't happy with that. But we were shooting till February. I did 11 months on that movie. I started in March. I was cast and started doing makeup, braces stuff. But sailing, even in the Gulf in November and December, is not a lot of fun.
What about chewing ice? Chewing ice.
Chewing ice, yeah. Because we had to chew ice so we wouldn't vaporize. You know, here we are in you know, swimsuits and bathing suits and summer attire, you know, chewing ice so that it wouldn't come out.
Hello. I was going to say 3 things. You all remember because I just took my picture with each and every one of you, and I never got a chance to really say the 3 things that I want to say. Number 1, Jaws is my all-time favorite movie in my life. I'm almost 60 in a couple of years. Everybody here is probably a fan of the movie, or we probably wouldn't be here. The second thing is, of course, Richard Dreyfuss couldn't be here and was scheduled to be here. So I'm going to tell a story, if it's okay, not a question, but you'll probably find it fascinating or interesting. So back in 2016, Richard Dreyfuss did, it was a showing of the movie Jaws and then question and answers, and he was live present. That was my first time meeting him. And so they showed the movie first, and then afterwards people could ask questions. Richard Dreyfuss said, I have a $20 bill. If anybody here can ask me a Jaws question that I've never heard of. So I was the only one that stumped him. He was amazed, like the whole audience was, as I told him a bit of trivia that probably nobody in this room knows. And he was very impressed, but he didn't give me the 20, and I'm glad he didn't. He saved it for a child, okay, that was there. But my question...
That's what he always says.
Oh. well, so if anybody's curious to know what the question was, I said there's 3 actors in the movie Jaws that at one time or another were in another movie with someone in the movie that in real life
was killed by the Manson family? Has any of you ever heard of that question? Jeffrey?
No, and I thank goodness I would never even think of it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I did not create the question. I mean, someone else, I had read it somewhere. But anyways, the three actors are Dick Warlock, who was Richard Dreyfuss' stunt double. The other actor is Murray Hamilton, and the third actor is Richard Dreyfuss. So he was wild. And then I told him what the movies were. But anyways, the last thing I was gonna say, if he was here, I was gonna ask him this magical question. I don't know if it's a flaw, you know how movies have funny flaws in them, but the very first time you see Richard Dreyfuss in the movie Jaws is when all the boats are gonna go out and try and catch the shark, and he comes up to the dock, and he's helped out of a tiny little boat by Craig Kingsbury, who played Ben Gardner. But later on, when they go searching and they find Ben Gardner's boat, it's some big boat that Richard Dreyfuss has with all this equipment. So what? Did he go to the island in two different boats? The little tiny boat that he pulled up to the dock, which you see him climbing out of.
That was from Woods Hole. They drove him over in a little boat. I'm just making this up.
Hey, Gary, I heard that the original part 2 was vastly different. Can you tell me a little bit about that, the original movie that was shot? I heard it had a really dark tone to the original part 2.
The original part 2 was definitely a little darker. A
little?
There was more. There was definitely going to be more blood. We started shooting it and with the blood, which then for the second part of part 2, they cut out a lot. We shot like Billy Van Zandt saying. We shot him with blood dying on the boat, and then without blood, and then with him alive on Cable Junction. And it's like, but the first one was definitely darker. There was a lot. There seemed to be more menace in it, and I'm not sure what happened with Hancock. I mean, there were a lot of people who said he just wasn't up for the task, and some people didn't like, the way he was shooting it. His wife, Dorothy Tristan, wrote the first script, and they thought that was a little too colluding. But it would have been a very interesting movie. I have the script at home. I have to go and reread that. I haven't read that for a while.
So, Lance, real quick, do you have any stories about working with Lorraine Gary?
Well, she was always really nice to me because she treated me like her actual kid, which was sort of sweet, and she was a really good mom and everything, the way she interacted with her other kids. So there aren't any really specific.
I think she's a fabulous lady.
Yeah, she really is.
She's warm and kind and giving. And I'll tell you a little funny story. Lorraine was married to Sid Sheinberg, who ran the studio, gave Steven Spielberg a start. And I'm in my uniform. I'm a little actor in Pensacola, and Sid is there. And I go up and I talk to them, and a lady comes up to me. I'm in my uniform, and she says, "Oh, sir, you look so familiar." And I think, whoa, this is in front of the head of the studio. And she says, "Are you in a bowling league in town?" Sid laughed out loud, and Lorraine said, "Oh my God, he never laughs like this. He never laughs like this." So I then changed my life, and I became an executive at Fox. And I called Sid and I said, "Would you have lunch with me?" And he says, "Of course I will." And we had lunch. And for the first time in my life, I had a expense account. So I paid, and I put through Sid Sheinberg, and my boss, a schmagoo named, I won't name him, says to me, "Oh, come on, Jeffrey. You had lunch with Sid Sheinberg." I said, what did you need, an affidavit? I should have him sign something? I eventually got paid back for it. But it's just a little Scheinbergian anecdote.
I have a pretty good Sid Sheinberg joke. We had a party, I think the first day we were shooting in the Bahamas, and they were making sushi, and they had Mako shark sushi, and so the guy's passing it around, and I grabbed some. I was hungry. I ate sushi, and I motioned to Sid, and he goes, "Nope, we have a deal. I don't eat them. They don't eat me."
That's funny. That's good.
I asked my dad if he would have any questions for you, and he wanted to know, well, I guess you've already kind of touched on this, considering you did describe it as prison, but he wanted to know how much fun you had filming the movie, or the several movies you were in.
Is that me? I don't know.
It's for anybody.
For anybody? How much fun we had?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I had a lot of. We were in Martha's Vineyard. I loved Martha's Vineyard, even in February. It was just beautiful. I just liked the locations, and also Mario. He improvised. I was going to go back with the improvising story, but he changed his character radically. His original guy was this really kind of a bad mother. He was like this tough guy. And he was like, why do I want to do that? And so we played it like a sort of a comedian. And he rewrote, I would say, 80% of his dialogue. He was like, all right, Mario, what are you going to say? Okay, that's good, we're going to say. And I was, I stuck with the script the whole time because I didn't want to improvise at all. But that could be fun sometimes. And we rode jet skis around, and we had a lot of downtime, and we didn't have to freeze like these guys.
We had parties every Friday night.
Oh yeah, we didn't really. We were kind of I don't know.
As Gigi was saying before, it was movie camp. There's 14 or 15 teenagers and sailboats, and we had a lot of time off. And as you mentioned,
there were some romances.
Jet skis hadn't even come out yet. There was no jet bikes. We had the Kawasaki, the prototypes. So, back in '77, we would play with them on times off. So it was a lot of fun.
We almost died of joy.
Question over there.
Hi, my question is for Lance. So you played Michael Brody in Jaws Revenge, but you also played Jimmy in Halloween 2. Which one was your favorite film to play in, and how funny was it for you to play a victim of Michael's when your name was Michael in Jaws Revenge?
Aha, you're making the connections, I see. Let's see. I hadn't thought about it that way. They were fun both for different reasons. I mean, Halloween 2 was the first movie I ever made. Besides, I think I made a student film. I was only 20 years old. I was like 2 years out of dropping out of college. It was just fun. Halloween 2 was fun because everything was new, and I didn't get burned out. I was a Mr. Go-Getter, 100% of the time. And Jaws: Revenge was rough because it was so long, not as long as these guys, but it was 5 months, and it was the pace would get really interrupted because we'd go for days without doing anything. But I really, there were great people working on Jaws: Revenge, and I'm an ocean guy, I'm like I did a lot of surfing and stuff, and I really love the ocean, so just anything involving the ocean is fun to me. And I like running on the jet skis and things like that, but I don't have a better, I'm sorry.
I had a question for Jeff. Over here, Jeff. You told a story. We had a chance to talk with you on the Amity Jaws group earlier this year, and you told a story when you were producing. You had won an award, and I think Steven Spielberg presented it to you, and you told a story which I thought was very, very funny.
So I was partnered with David E. Kelly, and we made Ally McBeal in The Practice and Chicago Hope. And one year David won an award at the Writers Guild, and he asked me if I would accept it for him. He couldn't go. And I said, of course. And it turns out that Steven Spielberg is presenting the award, And I've run into Stephen occasionally, and he's always very kind and sweet to me. And I go up to get the award accepted for David, and Stephen says, "Oh, Jerry, I'm so proud of you." And I think, oh my God, what am I going to say? No, it's Jeffrey. And I can't do it. There's 600 people sitting in the audience. I just said, "Oh, thank you." So then my children started calling me Jerry, and my friends started calling me Jerry, and it made me nuts.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
This one's for Jeff. Do you have any good Robert Shaw stories?
No, not really, because he was never around. He always left in between shooting because he had, it was for tax reasons, he says. But he was nice. But I met his son, Ian, because Gary and I went to see the play on Broadway.
I saw it too.
And it was really kind of fun. Richard was not happy with his portrayal, which I don't blame him in a certain way. But it was a confection that made up of, what they said supposedly to each other. But that whole feud thing, I don't know if there's real truth behind that story, honestly.
Hi, you probably remember me. I was at your autograph line, Jeffrey. But I just
Where
have
are
one
you?
question for you. Right over here.
Oh, I see you.
Did you know?
Kira,
yes,
right?
That's me. Yep. Did you know that Robert Shaw did the Indianapolis speech entirely? I think it was improv by him, or it was, heavily edited by him, if I remember correctly. Did you know about that?
Well, I know that he was too drunk to do it the day before. And he said to Stephen, "I will get it right tomorrow." And Stephen trusted him, and he came in and he nailed it. Oh, yeah? Oh, I didn't know that. Theatrical license. You have the right to do that.
The Dick, right?
Dick Warlock.
Dick.
Oh, Dick Warlock. Oh, right.
Question over there?
Yes, this question is for Jeffrey. Can you confirm the story about the food fight during Jaws?
The food fight? You mean on Jaws 2? No, I wasn't there.
At the Carroll house.
I think it was at the house that they all ate at that house. They had a cook. I wasn't there. I would have liked to have been.
Was there one in part 2?
I could tell you one we had with my teenage boys in our house, but wasn't the same. Not as cinematic, because they had to clean it up.
Gigi, what's your biggest memory of filming part 2?
My biggest memory of filming part 2.
Thing that sticks with you.
Oh my! There were so many. I mean, I have a personal story. It's pretty personal, but I'll tell it.
Okay.
Here I was on this big picture, right? And I was a little while dropping out of college, and I flew my mom in. So she, because my mom was a little nervous. I'm dropping out of college. What does that mean? Am I going back? Am I still going to be a lawyer? Which I'm not. So I fly my mom down, I pick her up in a limo, and we're going out to the set. And she gets in the limo, and as soon as we leave, she says, "Now, as soon as this is over, You're going to get a real job. Go back to school. Real job. So, you know, I couldn't win because I was making money. So that's a personal story, but what I really loved was hanging out with the gang. Because we had so much time off, we had a lot of time to bond. We started playing, were we playing checkers? No, we were playing, what are the tiles? Dominoes. We started playing dominoes, and it was just a lot of fun. I have a lot of photos from those days. And that's it. It was like my fraternity, sorority.
This one is for Lance. What was it like working with the great Michael Caine?
Really great, because he was quite a sport. You know, he was always friendly and always very. I kind of have a lot of mini stories about Michael Caine. He taught me that you close your eyes, look at the sun, and you won't squint when they put the 10K cameras on you, when they put the 10K lighting on you. So the rest, you know, everybody's doing a movie like this. But he also, I always say he saved my life. Some of you may have heard the story before, but he, when we're driving out to get Mom in the big boat, me and Jake is, let's see, I'm in the back. I weigh 160 pounds at this point. Jake's in the front. I'm sorry, I'm in the back. The cameraman's in the back. Jake's on the front of the boat. We shoot his coverage. We turn around. Cameraman, Jake, and the camera are on the front of the boat. 160-pound me in the back of the boat. There's a battery pack at the bottom of the boat, encased in plastic. The front of the boat just goes down, and the battery pack is surrounded by water. So, those of you that know about the toaster in the bathtub or the hairdryer, all of a sudden get that fuck out of the bullpen, and boom, this guy pulls me out of this, and it's Michael Caine. He used one arm, he grabbed me by the shirt and yanked me out of the boat so I wouldn't get electrocuted. The cameraman takes the $200,000 camera, throws it onto the barge. He dives off, Mario dives off. I was the last one out, and it was Michael Caine, literally one-handed. He grabbed me by the shirt and just yanked me out of the boat, because they're like at the, they're on a barge. And it was kind of fun,
Did
I love
anybody
that.
get that on film?
Pardon?
Nobody got that on film?
No.
Shame.
The camera was the first to go. I mean, our DP was like, get the camera out of here. I'm going. I'm not going to go down with the camera. So, because the barge is like as far away from you to me. So when I'm sure you've seen production photos of the Jaws movies. There's this little tiny boat, and then there's a gigantic barge with the entire crew on it, out in the middle of the ocean. It's a funny sort of shot. Anyways, so every time I hear Michael Caine talk, and I see him in a lot of movies, all I can hear is, "Get the fuck out of that boat!" I think there's one more. Let's see.
Hi, over here. Hi. We heard how Christine was approached to do her part. How were you all approached to either audition, or did you hear from an agent, or how did you get into your role? And when you heard, hey, there's this part in Jaws you might be interested in, what were your first thoughts? Were you immediately like, yes, or were you like, maybe not?
I came on with the new director. I replaced somebody, which I always felt bad about a little bit. But for me, it was a really quick process, and then he'll tell you it was a long process. I got a call from some agents I had when I was a kid. I wasn't acting anymore. I was journalism major, blah, blah, blah. And they said, hey, it's us. Can you go to Universal this afternoon and just read for Jaws 2? For the director, whatever. I went, okay. 2 days later, I was gone for 7 months. So for me, it was a very exciting kind of a whirlwind thing. And then I got there, and then I kind of had to impress the rest of the cast, who were a little pissed off about the people leaving. But I think I managed.
Some of the people.
Some of the people, right.
All right, let's take one final question. Anybody have one final question? Okay. Back here. Oh.
What was it like to work for Steven Spielberg?
Well, he was still Steven then. I mean, he really was. We were kids. He's now Spielberg. But he was really, he was kind, he was patient, and I always had the sense that he knew what he wanted to see. And he would just, we'd keep doing it until he was satisfied, but we didn't overshoot, and he wasn't like Clint Eastwood that does it in one take. But he really, I knew that in his own mind's eye, he knew what he wanted. And he'd come up and make a suggestion occasionally that I thought was really kind of right on the money and emotional and correct. And you know, you adapt as an actor and you try to give the director what they're looking for, and not everyone can explain themselves, and he really was very nice. He didn't overly direct, but he was a great guide, I thought. He cast us because we were close to those characters, or looked like we were close to those characters anyway. And that was half the battle, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Young.
All right, everybody. Well, can we have a round of applause for our Jaws panel? Just so you're all aware, directly following this, they are going to be heading back to the autograph tables and the photo ops. So if you have not got one, get one. Like Jeffrey said, while you can. But they will be there for the next little bit to take photo ops with you and sign autographs. In addition, right now after this, does anybody here like National Geographic? So we are actually going to, National Geographic has donated 3 different shows that are coming up here in Tampa on the Strass. So we are actually going to be taking bids on that up at the front info booth. So if you're interested, you'll be able to go see these 3 shows: The Rise of the T-Rex, Wildcats Revealed, and The Untold Story of Sharks. So if you get a chance, up at the front of the info booth where the raffle is, there'll be a thing. We'll do a silent auction, and the high bid will get those 3 things. Sound good? All right. Next up is Jackson Hooten. He is going to talk about all of his adventures with white sharks in South Africa. Oh wait, we forgot this. It's somebody's birthday tomorrow. Hey, who here would like to sing happy birthday to Mr. Jeffrey Kramer?
Hey, real quick before we do, can everybody at the count of 3 shout out, Richard, we miss you? 1, 2, 3.
Richard, we miss you. All right, let's do it. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jeffrey. Happy birthday to you. All right.
Jeff, for the last 2 months, members of the Amity Jaws group and the Jaws 50 page have sent us cards and gifts for you. If you can't fit them in your carry-on, I'll mail them to you.
Thank you so much. Let's get great.
There you go.
Hey, Lance. Just, oh, by the way, that dumb movie in your phone was one of my favorites.
Your brother just does a cake.
Whoa.
50-pound cake.
Oh, that was sweet.
That whole song, you've lost the love of
doesn't like these kind of clowns. He does the natural
You got good. The mom and dad aren't cool right now. Our balcony. They told me they were going to put it in the thing.
No, I'm glad they did.
I'm teasing. Right? The first thing I said. So what's happening?